Hey guys, Eddie here. Once again, in this video, I'm just gonna quickly share with you the importance of sort of like picking your niche audience versus focusing on the promoting products. And what I want to do is sort of like just to quickly help you understand why a niche audience versus product is probably maybe one of the things that you would want to sort of like have a look before you get started into anything. The first problem that I see with a lot of beginners online who come actually online and they start launching their blog is the fact that when you focus on promoting a product, really the issue there is the fact that products actually come and go. If you look at now, you would probably maybe find on the market that there are some products that are available for the next 2 months or so, and beyond that there will be another sort of like a stream of new products coming on the market. So if you focus your sort of like your business on building it around products, you are gonna sort of like suffer the kind of like yo-yo type of business. You always be on the hunt, trying to find the next product that you can actually promote. The good thing about sort of like finding a niche is the fact that when you have a niche, you can actually sort of like build a long-term business with goals, and the kind of like start focusing on building a viable relationship with them, but at the same time also keeping in mind that the whole idea for you to actually start this journey to launch your blog or a niche website is the fact that you wanted to make money. So kind of like give it a good a thorough thought and see what is it that you want to promote. I'm always surprised at why I think a lot of beginners tend to ignore some of the main things I think that takes to actually build a business. Because if you're building a business, your business is not necessarily the product. The product, that's not your business. Your business is actually servicing the consumers who actually come and use, whether it's your services or the products that you produce. So a good example would be if you walk around in your local vicinity, you might find that there are actually local coffee shops, and the probably maybe places where you can actually go and hang and have a drink. The difference for most of these local cafes with Starbucks is the fact that Starbucks figured it out long time ago that their business is not necessarily selling coffee, but the distributional network that they have built on the audience that loves visiting these places. That's their business. So you might look on the surface and think that Starbucks is in the business of selling coffee, but that's not true. Them guys, their business is distribution. It's not selling coffee. So coffee is just a product inside of their business model. And in this particular case, if you're going to go and start building a niche website, think about the products not necessarily as your business. Your business is going to be based on the relationship or the quality of the relationship that you're going to build with your people. The very same example I would also give to you guys, like for YouTube. If you are a creator on YouTube, obviously if you're a blogger or if you're starting a blog, then that's obvious that you are a content creator. You don't matter to YouTube. What matters to YouTube, I think, is when you go on YouTube and start consuming content as a consumer. that's when you matter. But as a creator, you don't matter. And the business for YouTube is not to sort of like make you feel comfortable on YouTube and stuff like that. For them is to make sure that they keep the attention of visitors who actually come, because that's the relationship they have, the relationship that is sort of like putting money into their pocket. Because when they go out and they monetize the inventories of advertising that they have on YouTube and stuff like that, or when people are bragging about the experience they have on YouTube, that's the service. That's what makes them sort of like tick. You and me, we use YouTube. If we are creators, we use YouTube as a distributional channel. We don't own it. We only use it. We only have a privilege to use it. And if we want to own the relationship that we have, or maybe if we want to sort of like build a relationship and own it 100%, then we have to sort of like tap into this network that YouTube has actually given us a privilege to use it, and sort of like, you know, build a parallel platform outside of YouTube. That's why most of the content creators that you actually come across, they always say, remember to build a list, remember to build a list, remember to build a list. The reason why they keep banging on this is simply because they know that unless you build your own distributional network, a network that you actually own, you don't have a business. Because when YouTube decides to kick you out of their platform, you've lost the connection that you have, because each and every subscriber who subscribes on a YouTube channel, whether it's mine or your YouTube channel or anybody's YouTube channel, it doesn't matter whether it's Gary V or whosoever is on YouTube. Those subscribers belong to Google. They belong to YouTube. So look at the same way how your product kind of like works in your favor to help you build a relationship with your consumers, so that you can sort of like strengthen, you know, the cause for them to sort of like stick with you. All right. So in this video, what I'm trying to do is sort of like kind of like help you see how you can go about looking into finding that niche audience, instead of looking to products that should help you to sort of like build your audience. So the first thing that you've got to do is sort of like look into what you can do to brainstorm that audience. It's important to make sure that you understand that there are steps for you to sort of like figure them out. And what I'm going to do in this video is sort of like show you guys how you can go about doing that step by step. And I'm also going to share with you some of the tools that I use when I'm doing sort of like a brainstorm to figure out which audience should I be looking into. All right. Once you've done that, once you've you know, brainstormed that particular audience that you want to focus on, the one thing that I do is to make sure that I identify the kind of problems that I can actually go in that particular audience and solve. Listen, guys, any business, if you are going to start thinking about building a particular business, you've got to look into what kind of problems can you actually solve. Because if there are no problems for you to actually solve, forget the idea that you can actually make money out of your efforts. So think about that audience when you're brainstorming. Look into what kind of interest do they have, what kind of challenges do they have, and who are the players in that particular industry and what are they doing. And if you had to jump into that particular niche market, what would you do differently so that you can sort of like carve out your own authoritative position within that particular niche and sort of like you know, have an impact in that particular niche. So identifying the problems is going to sort of like, you know, help you isolate and sort of like put each and every player in that particular niche who are sort of like vying for the same audience that you're going for, put them in front of you, and then you can actually sort of like look at how you can go in and take them one by one and dice them and see how you can actually go and own that particular market. Okay. The other thing is when you are also looking into these particular niches and when you are looking into your audience and stuff like that, especially when you are brainstorming that audience and looking into what kind of problems that you can actually solve, it's important to think about finding what we would call the most profitable problems that you can actually solve. Listen, your problem to somebody is an opportunity, and that's the way how the world works. It doesn't matter how you look at it. If you have a defected heart problem, you go to a private heart surgeon. He's gonna charge you regardless of whether you're about to die or not, and they won't give you treatment until you sort of like say, yes, I can afford this. As a matter of fact, if you can't afford it, they will be more than happy to send you home, knowingly that if they did that, you would actually die. So whatever problem your audience has, whether it's between life and death, if you are going to sort of like pick problems that you want to solve in your niche, make sure that those problems are kind of like profitable. And as part of this series that I'm recording weekly, I'm going to be publishing videos that are going to help you sort of like figure out which problems are they are a bit profitable, and how you can actually go about conquering even if they are competitive, and sort of like outlining the strategies and long-term goals, and how to go about doing what you need to do, to make sure that you own that market. All right. So like I said, that you have to find profitable sort of like problems that you can solve. So what I want to do here is to show you how you can go about doing that, and then kind of like practically walk you step by step and show you. But the number one thing that you also sort of like you want to make sure that you do is to make sure that you take a closer look at the number of monthly searches related to that problem. And in the next video, when we're doing keyword research and stuff like that, I will show you how we do these particular things, so that I can share with you some of the tips and some of the tools that I use personally. I tend to gravitate towards free tools, because I know most of my audiences are people who are just getting started into getting into this industry. So I try my level best to make sure that most of the tools that I'm using are tools that anyone can instantly have access to them without actually having to think about spending money before anything begins. The other thing that I also make sure that I keep an eye on is my focus on the number of searches that would indicate to me that there is an intent for that particular audience to actually solve a problem. There are so many searches on the market, and with the number of changes that we've seen, especially for Google, where now I think when a customer is searching for a particular product or service, Google is broadly now looking into intent-based search terms, and then matching those terms with content that has been created with an intent-focused solution for those particular searches. So as a content creator, it's my responsibility to make sure that I sort of like I find those keywords and create content around those keywords with an intent of being a solution to those guys. So make sure that you keep your focus on the numbers of those searches, but importantly, making sure that you don't overlook the intent behind that particular searches. If the intent is for them to actually solve the problem they have. But on the other hand, also kind of like take a step back and look at the, how you want to approach your market, because some of the products that actually are being sold on the market, they are seasonal products. So if you are going to start making money, probably maybe only 3 months of the year, or maybe 2 months of the whole year, and you have to wait for that particular season to come back for you to actually make money, then you're gonna only have to do that unless if you've got multiple streams, of revenue coming your way. Otherwise, if this is your first business, or maybe you want the kind of money that keeps flowing into your pocket, then you would want to make sure that you avoid, seasonal keywords that have got no sort of like a stable base where clients are constantly searching for related keywords for that particular problem that they want to solve. And the other thing that I also kind of like make sure that I look into is to critically analyze the market and look if there is anything that I want to root out, more especially the amount of good quality free sources of information where my targeted audience would kind of like find themselves congregating. So what I want to do is kind of like quickly just to show you practically some of the steps that I do quickly in sort of like figuring out how to pick this audience and stuff like that. This is magazines.com. One of my favorite places where I normally come to sort of like take a dive and look at magazines that are actually doing very well in my particular niche that I've actually chosen to look into. The reason why I come and look at the magazines and looking into what is working and what is not working at that particular time when I'm getting started is the fact that what you want to do online and what these magazines are doing, whether they are simply selling subscription only, whatever, or maybe the magazines are being sold offline, they kind of like it opens up, a window into how advertising is working and what sort of influence is that, is that particular market having on consumers and things like that. If you open any new magazine today, or if you walk into a shop, your local shop, wherever you live, and you pick up a magazine, you open a magazine, you find probably maybe the first 10, 15 pages of that particular magazine is all rammed up with the ads. That's the way how they make their money. And looking at what is working at the moment, what your audience is consuming in that particular niche, by looking at magazines, it's the easiest and the quickest way to sort of like figure out exactly what is it that you should be looking into when you are cultivating your audience. So in this particular case, we dive into looking at categories, and all these categories that you are seeing here, they are up for grabs. You can actually dive in and sort of like open each one of them and seriously take a dive and look into. For example, if I open a home and garden magazine subscription, it shows me that there are quite a number of magazines that are doing very well. You can see Better Homes, Family Handyman, Good Housekeeping, HGTV. Those are sort of like some of the subcategories that I can actually, look into. do it yourself. DIY is probably maybe one of the growing industries at the moment. Pretty much anybody who wants to build or do something else, they are looking at DIY as their first point of contact in terms of what they want to do and how they want to go about doing what they need sorted out. So this is the place that I would come into, and I would make sure that I drill down, and you can actually drill them down based on the best sellers, or you could look into whether it's women. And if you look at the bottom here, you can actually see what are the best sellers and the what people are actually sort of like reading and enjoying spending much of their hard-earned money on. If you are into teenagers and stuff like that, you could look into that and sort of like pick whatever magazine that you want to look into. If you go at the bottom here, you can see these are the subcategories that you can look into. For example, if you see teen life, then you can go in here and you will find some of the best magazines that you can actually look into and find what is it that's working for teenagers these days. And if there's a space that you can actually look into, that's what is actually happening at the moment. All right, guys, the next tool that I normally use is Amazon. Guys, if you don't know Amazon, that is packed with helpful information that could actually help you break into your niches, then you must be really kind of like living under some kind of a rock. But if there is any activity on a global platform happening, more especially e-commerce, where e-commerce is concerned, if it's not on Alibaba, it's on Amazon. And this is sort of like a gold mine where you can come in and just delve in and see what sort of niches can you look into and tap into that particular audience and start building your business on that. Here I just quickly picked books, and we're looking at children's books, but there is also computer and finance. And in finance, we are looking at business life. You could look at into career, or maybe you could look into investing. These are all packed with all sorts of books that I can actually dive in and sort of like look into how I can start build I can start building my own niche website. If you are into day trading for a living and stuff like that, then these are some of the books that you would probably look into and see how their audience is kind of like working out with this kind of like just gives you an insight into what your audience is going to look like. And the good thing about Amazon is the fact that when you use Amazon and the Google AdWords, you would be surprised. For example, if I open this book, all right, if I open this book, if I just open this book and copy the URL, open the book and copy the URL and paste it into Google AdWords, Google AdWords is going to give me tens of thousands of keywords that I can actually sort of like dice them down and look at them closely and see who are these people who are actually searching for these keywords on Google, and how can I target them. if their searches are intent based, how can I sort of like break down into them and see what is it that is gonna sort of like motivate them to buy products and services that I can actually put in front of them. But above all, it's gonna take a whole lot of understanding and knowing exactly say if they're looking into day trading for a living. This could be somebody who is looking at having, kind of like a type of a job where there's a bit of flexibility in terms of where they work, the lifestyle they have, the job is not constraining them, like sort of like tied down to a desk, but they are kind of like looking to break away and sort of like have the freedom to travel the world and still be able to make money while they're traveling and stuff like that. And by kind of like understanding exactly what they want and why they're looking into this particular kind of materials that they are reading into, then that gives me an opportunity to sort of like go and create the content that they want and the information they need in this particular niche, but also be able to sort of like offer them a broad contrast into some of the other options that are also available to them within the very same flexible lifestyle that they're looking into. They say sometimes you go to a dentist simply because you have a toothache, only to realize that it's not a toothache, it's actually a headache that's been sort of like causing signs that feel like you have a toothache. So a dentist is not gonna only kind of like tell you that this is not headache, but he's gonna say, look, it's not headache, but if you need a doctor, here is where you can find one who can actually cure this kind of headache. So sometimes we could be applying our trade in the day trading niche market, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't recommend products that are closely related to day trading, but we are not offering them. And by doing that, we kind of like become that middleman where we are recommending a product or service offered by a parallel audience, or maybe a parallel marketer, and then that marketer or service provider comes and says thank you by giving us a commission for referring that particular customer. All right, guys, like I said, that I will be doing these videos, at least a couple of them, and the series is ongoing. So if you are looking into getting started, make sure that you subscribe on this channel for this series, and going beyond that, we would be looking into how you could kind of like look into analyzing the market that you want to get into, looking into how you could set goals that you've got for your niche, how you can target your audience, pick your keywords and research them properly and create a hit list for content that you can actually start creating, and how you can actually go about structuring your blog and your website and stuff like that. I'm gonna be doing a step-by-step complete guide and showing you guys everything you need to know going beyond this. And if you guys are happy to tag along and sort of like watch over my shoulders and see how everything is done, then I think make sure you subscribe to this channel. But below this video there is also a link where it takes you to a page. I've put together some resources that you can download for free. I've got a checklist there. I've got a few other bits and pieces that I think is going to be a little bit helpful to you as you're getting started. So make sure that you go and get that checklist downloaded, but also a to-do list that I've put in place. I hope that I'm going to see you by the end of this week when I come back with another video. Like I said, if you subscribe here on this channel, when we publish a new piece of video or a new piece of content, I should say, YouTube is going to notify you that we've published one. And that's the beauty of making sure that you subscribe to this channel. All right, guys. Cheers.